the German colonial government introduced what has came to be known as the reserve system, whereby certain areas of the land was reserved under certain chiefs or captains. So Wahanas was therefore officially proclaimed as a native reserve by the Germans, with at least 50,000 hectares of land. The South African government took over in 1920, and shortly after it took over, the South African government wanted this area for white settlement. Therefore, they asked the tribe to move to Amenuis, the Ruenas Inamas, proud of their history, refused to move to the Amenuis. And as a result of this, the South African officer, which was the very first administrator which was appointed by the South African government to this country, came down to Wahanas, where he told the people that he will put a fence around them. He will camp them in such a way that they will be forced to eat the limestones of Wahanas from which they don't want to move.
Many voices are calling from the dry pastoral margins of southern and central Namibia. They are calling for a more just share of the land, water, and government help to develop the little they have. These calls arise out of conditions where too many people and animals are trying to survive on too little land. These are the lives that have been swept into the arid margins of the country and the economy. Many of these communities have been cast out of their lands within living and recent memory. With the departure of the colonial government, Namibia's pastoralists expect to regain their livelihoods. The boundaries of some of their land claims are clearly described. The Red Nation Namas once used the wide open lands surrounding Wahanas. The white-owned farms fall into the ancestral lands of the Red Nation Namas. People believe that the return of their lands could help solve their immediate problems. Water points are crucial for pastoralists in the arid south. Wahanas came into existence because of the water that was discovered there by the hunting dogs of the Red Nation.
Miskien is dit 'n politieke onafhanklikheid wat ons gekry het, maar ekonomies is dit vir ons nie 'n vryheid wat ons gekry het nie. En in hierdie lig gezien, dink ek dat ons regmatige land behoort teruggegee te word.
Die mense kan nie 'n bestaan maak nie. Hulle kan nie boer nie omdat hulle nie grond het om op te boer nie en daar is ook geen werksgeleenthede hier nie. Die mense op die plase hier, veral sedert onafhanklikheid, word sommer maar net deur hulle werkgewers gelos en dan word hulle gedwing om na Waganas toe te kom. En dan die wat selfs op die plase werk, het nie 'n noemenswaardige inkomste nie. So dit is alles probleme wat ons huidiglik op Waganas ondervind. Wat ons dink tot 'n mate opgelos sal word, sou aan daardie eis van ons voldoen word.
Kaudani, aitina da juwa da mangaji ko sini dan anang ku na konni kumi tausi akui no bain ha ta ui suarona ngadi khairo kastu jarai khamai kali ai ara toro bising ai aban asing ai na gulit khapna kari ko sini suarona kubau ka khali chi ase habu mut na gulit na go ne a misi sina kain abi si kain isi ba uang hawa ha khabini an sa si kha uriti oni se ai tau khaiske dan tiga ai
So ons bedoel nie dat daardie grond, dat daardie mense maar net van daardie grond af weggejaag moet word. Dit is nie ons bedoeling nie. Maar dit moet ook baie duidelik verstaan word dat ons oorspronklik eintlik van daardie grond ontneem is sonder enige vergoeding. So wanneer dit kom by betaling, dan is ons as gevolg van hierdie onteiening, as gevolg van skade wat aan ons berokken is ons armoedig en ons is nie in staat, soos wat kaptein reeds gesê het, om daardie grond terug te koop nie. Daarom moet daar 'n struktuur uitgewerk word waar volgens hierdie grond van hierdie mense teruggekoop. Wie dit sal betaal, dit is die struktuur wat dit sal bepaal.
Ida sida nada get ni khwa ko ti khaw ai sa a ke khaw hu a ai ska
All over Namaland, communities face the same problems. Drought and inadequate water are a constant worry to farmers in the south. There are many dry boreholes and broken water reservoirs. Wind-driven pumps do not provide enough water for people and animals because the wind does not always blow. Problems are especially severe in the driest and hottest time of the year. Mateo Swarboy and Willie Roy are farmers in the Sneyfontein community south of Keetmanshoop. Remoteness from markets and difficulties with transport are some of the problems experienced. Small farmers complain about the large herds belonging to rich communal farmers, which use up the common pasture. Wealthy farmers want camps for their animals.
Die ander mense se diere kom tussenin, omdat die plaas nie bewerk is nie. Daar is nie omheining wat die ander mense diere kan keer. Eintlik 'n probleem waarmee ons eintlik juist nodig is drade om die plaas omheining, sodat die ander mense diere nie kan inkom.
Wealthy farmers employ people as herders. These workers are dissatisfied with long working hours, little job security, and very low wages.
Die tisaidir titabakai ga gane ji kom sira gane ji orma kasko si jing orma kasko si se orma kumni si wasuga kong se gui ni ba koni song dang asta.
To keep his production costs down, this man's employer pays workers with food aid. The communal areas were kept unproductive, dumping grounds for the dispossessed, with no markets and low stock prices.
Kaning amakustu ay ki kwepta kritisa ko na overlead price as i. At yung matang masik aroma mut ko na ning amako. Ang unskini. Say so that yung ko ay kuya na ko. May kani kuya ko. Mili ro chino hobas no fitskini kero hobas no sai kero hobas no. At yung asa mari kini hobas no. O nits ha ko nits agari mari nan tabasti kom si kai se kai. Kogu kao. Un kao. Kani kao. Ne kuje manga da ha kom si ka. Si akas. Marke ke un hat mari da ni. Is kan aroma ha se ke masi ba kapisa. Koin tiba.
Land claims arise from the communities which have been dispossessed and are struggling with the consequences. The Rehoboth gebied covers 15,000 square kilometers, virtually all of which is natural grazing. The land is owned only by busters. There are many people living in a small area. Many of them are tenants on other people's farms. These include not only impoverished busters, but also Damara and Nama tenants and farm workers. The field is generally in a poor condition. This is related to the progressive reduction of farm size on inheritance. Farms have been subdivided among heirs to the point where most have become uneconomical. The large numbers of people have over the years created a demand for schools, and what were once farms are now impoverished rural settlements. In the designated common areas, individuals have been camping off tracts of land for their exclusive use. The small farmers who do not have the means are generally powerless to prevent others from doing so. The camp around this paddock in Groot Oak threatens the already tenuous land rights of the Namas, the Damaras, the poor and elderly, for whom this land was originally intended. Long before the busters arrived, the land of the Rehoboth gebied was used by Nama and Damara pastoralists. Today, many of these people are totally dependent for their livelihood on tenure in these mini reserves.
En net die probleem van die kampe wat nou hier op grond opgekom het, is die mense wat baie kampe hier opgesit. En ons het maar nou baie min grond vir die wetting van diere. En dit is die probleem vir ons.
Family farms in the gebied are so subdivided that efforts have been made to consolidate the land and to establish economically feasible farms. Not everyone supports this idea.
Maar ik denk hier is genoeg land als dat recht ontwikkeld wordt, waar elke inwoner van hierdie gebied een leven kan maken. Daar is in de laatste jaren gepoogd om, zoals we dat noemen, consolidatiewet hier van toepassing te maken. En ik denk dat is een van die dwaze dingen wat kan gedaan worden. Want als een man een stukje grond heeft, waar hij zijn eigen leven mag, en hij wordt naar die grond afgevat, en van een ander gegeven wat meer heeft, dan wordt daar een wat zijn grond afgevat is, last van die staat. Wat mij betreft moet daar onderzoek worden naar die kwaliteit van de grond en vastgesteld wordt waarvoor zo'n grond geschikt is. En dan moet daar die persoon gehelpt worden om in die richting te ontwikkelen. Want ik geloof als een familie, als een familiehoofd, als een familie niet te groot is. En hij, dan kan hij op een hectare grond ook een leven maken. Een uiteindelijke leven. Dat hangt af van wat hij daar doet. Hij kan met pluimvee boeren, hij kan tuinerij maken en zo.
Some farmers in the Rehoboth gebied either own or have bought up enough land to pursue farming along commercial lines. They have herds of karakul and cattle. Today they expect to be treated equally in the distribution of financial, marketing, and service resources to commercial farmers.
Nou, as jy nie daai mens kry wat wil werk nie, dat help nie om vir hom grond te gee nie. Die mens wat die geleentheid kry om grond te kan bekom, en hy is 'n boer. Vir hom moet ons die geleentheid gee, dan moet geld beskikbaar wees dat hy kan koop en dat hy kan daai plek beplan en ontwikkel sodat hy kan weer terugvloei na die staat toe of wat ook al, en dat die ander mense ook kan lewe.
While the majority of people in Pastoral land and in communal areas are poor, there are some strong farmers.
In the communal areas, we have a very difficult problem. It's getting worse because of increasing the number of people, and they are all, or most of them are subsistence farmers. But actually you get two types of farmers there, the real small one, and then you have the more well-to-do. These well-to-do farmers, during a crisis or during a drought, they're the ones that can move out of the communal area, and they do that, and they can lease land elsewhere. So they're in a position to look after their own interests, but then the small farmer is left back in a communal area, and he will just have to face the inevitable. What I envisage is that in a communal area, farmers that have reached a certain level of well-being must be phased out of the communal area, and he goes commercial, either by leasing land outside, or if the area warrants it, then maybe the communal land can be subdivided into a commercial portion and the rest remaining communal to accommodate the real poor or the beginner farmer. So what I see eventually is that on the basis of productivity alone, the communal area will gradually decrease in size, and eventually we will sit basically with a productive commercial farming.
This idea for the revival of communal areas is commonly held by rich farmers and many officials. The idea of converting communal areas into economic units addresses only technical and not social issues. Therefore, it is unlikely to be feasible. Slip is a family farm on which there are 3 schools, a spring that provides water, and an impoverished rural village. Slip is a receiving area for people who have nowhere else to go. They are entirely dependent for the water and right to stay on the goodwill of the landowner. Rehoboth is reported to have the worst inequality in land access, the worst social relations, and the most underpaid labor force in Namibia. Today there is anxiety about land. Busters fear that if their laws are swept away, they will lose their land to outsiders. Herero land consists of Ovitoto, Aminus, Oshimbingwe, and the larger areas of Herero land east and west. Cattle are the lifeblood of Herero agriculture. Like the Damara, Nama, and Basta lands, the Herero reserves lie within the disease-free cattle zone and have access to national and foreign livestock markets. Since rainfall is marginal for cultivation, Hereros depend on cattle for milk, meat, and cash income. Auctions like this one at Okomatapati are held regularly in various villages. White farmers come to buy cattle at these auctions, which are run by the Commercial Farmers Cooperative, AGRA. Farmers all over Herero land are dissatisfied about the grading system and prices fetched by their stock. Cattle are the only source of income. Cash is needed to buy grain, implements, and clothes. Although with higher rainfall than reserves in the south, Herero land shares many of their problems: restricted water supply, overcrowding, and remoteness from markets. The use of pastures in Herero land is restricted as a result of limited water availability. The presence of poisonous plants, known as gifblaar, further restrict utilization of available grazing land. The setting aside of this homeland for Hereros was made possible by the fact that much of it was not settled by the white farmers, being almost entirely waterless. Communities share boreholes in places where groundwater is available. Since large parts of Herero land do not have groundwater, grazing near the few water points is very degraded and not sufficient.
Mari bango fuso munda uhe makar no ruwele. Oku kondero block umunda uha kara ruwele. O manyotoro le rongo mongi ya we ya kuku batira wan. Injo siamu mwezi kina kubatira. Opo mbatu ya terasani na pono kunyono kira po nanjo defana ngoli. Injo nyono iso peso kunyotoro wa uliji.
Omi yangu tuhina yangu. Isoko ya misabi ebina munyokolo kona kole kukumata soko ka kutifire bina mu katunengo meyango ko ni ko meyanga po ngutu na anga uji iko muno meyako rabuja matu na nukasi ko mbandango ko kamuno mario
ngo mundu aubo kulikiro inavye pokabirele ngo kichambe kuye uli nebucha bo kulisa kwa ndu kuto kulitwa nao ngo kulisira mu mwengo kulisa
omia tuna ngai nini katuna hofu himu tulindoka titi walimendi mutu tambano tulimo chirongo chimwe chisho atuhe ujo kitu na majo matiti chingine kwa ina mungu okujoyo ngando murongo chituli muno mu ngando murongo.
Consequences of water and pastoral problems are overcrowding, widespread poverty, and conflicts about limited land resources. In many of the Herero reserves, wealthy stock owners have begun fencing off land in order to reserve dry season grazing for their cattle. This poses a major threat to the livelihood of poor farmers who cannot afford fences.
Hi okatikon. Tara como bedera la molauska gauri. Kamba la taka mo jeni. O van do dengi mo chirongo beu. No vina mo yo vingi. Ngabe no kamba pa mo kamba. Na kamba ni. Betu kwana ye kui hamida.
Sime haku ingola ngo belanje ni omo kamba. O utashe jima wingi omo kamba ingo kusho neno nembo mbebe
uvenga be
kuchirongo sha kambwa uri amu uruvelo rumango shinene urutiti karuna ndengo waka olo kamba ukaruvelo ukiri popa kambo lo kamba no olongo mbezeri penjeri imbabe no lo kamba umbura manuka abeka hiti samolo kamba la etema mutulio basiona olongo mbezetu ale utokuko kopu.
Fencing off of communal land has been occurring in all of Namibia's communal areas.
Manombo himbi ungura kwetu ko uruvi menaro kusha o mundungu are mamunu ke hiro horo mende kama foku unguro kamba pena bano faire ko skole tekeri honga kuche hiriso kukano wa kamba amuka hodu ondwela amuka apa mwe ayo chitumbwa chyo ayirongo vishimu na nje jinga irongo bino umena kusha ilipwena amechitumbwa ya chitumbwa chimunombwa ya nambano mumwanombo mundungu waro kena kuwanga kushavi ondwelu o ukondehi ose kuchanjo ondwelu iso kuronda olongombe nde hupa mumwe ulili ya okukaa ulino kuhina mwana umwe masherero ya okucha mwanombwi opupa yatiza kusha amina indino ndindi konde hiro wanda wehe ya ondwelu yanje njimbaranda kwa imaliwo vingi shimu na njonao ya ili ondwelu ondwelo njima iso kukawa fondoro ulili kukuli okutumbo kusemba ehindi rapwililo kukondwa molo kamp kusho mututa uhe maini no kutoka kondwa hiko kamp okushavi omundungu shapo lo kamba lenda omunyo nguma ni no kumuna kushavi omyele bine merisire molo kambanda omyele bine ekalisira molo kambanda omyele bine ekalisira molo kambanda omyele bine ekalisira molo kambanda kusha najwa chitumire mulongo na bibali ombura yanda ina munyo ya biha neno kuota kushina hino chitwa kapo behira kamwani chikulisira kourunga parukave oshima to kuhepo kutikwe to kusoku kondwa omunda uhe mapo urukondwa rwe oshina hiwina oshima shipo mundu jaru muka muno shimaliwa shirale mwako lombanga menaro kusha obinabye shwa kale mu shimaliwa ndino ndi mwango kurandolo ngombe ombanga ikupura kusha bi ngombe mukatira menaro kusha kona kamba mucho mbaya ino huko shimaliwa kwa ndana shoga ondo ngombe mazika jobina mabika utuwa kumara uli angali leo balimwe nimwe akarasa na ngomba tano mbanga njikwale mu shimaliwa ishe kurandolo ngombe kaina kumekelewa.
Poor people struggle to make ends meet. Priscilla Shidhu has 13 children. She and 4 other adults own no stock and live off one old man's pension of 92 rand.
Ya, sisa kwao. Hisoro kukupauli. Kupamwa kurundu. Mota tembo webati. Okusha mutu kana unashuri hele tulio luzorondu. Maze shiwa muno ndishwaranda shiwa muno shimaliwa kwa wakurundu. Tulio luzorondu. Shima tushiro toshivika na kuhiachi. Abuo.
The Eastern Water Carrier was designed to bring water from northern to southern Namibia. It was then extended to open up some of the unutilized pastures in western Herero land. Colonial policymakers targeted as beneficiaries of the scheme a privileged minority for whom 56 farms were established and supplied with free water. They received 5,000 hectares of fenced-in and camped farmland. The treatment of farm laborers in employ of large farmers leaves much to be desired.
Mbo kanungu siwa ulitu wadogo matuli nyokereu. Mano tara tuungura mbi tuungura mofara mamu morosvaten. Tuungura kuzako muhuka mnene. Konometa, konoyi, tuungura ngamwa rweve. Nuko nongu tukiro kone uwandi moja vi. Ndino sonda kono kungu. Rweve aruhi mongu. Ovesimo hingire kubandu. Ngabachoze imaliza. Bandu kabawanga. Nuvecha kapeno viungu. Nu viungura vevi munachi udhi umbo ulipo udhi. Oshiungura shodho ngombe kashisane nonshino shiungura sho shilipo oruveze rumwe ulilisho kasino kutori shiungura shodho ngombe shikaonje okadhako ngombe oyaruka ko ngombo okadhako ngombo oyaruka ko dhondo nganduko mautuku kunga moko toka kurara po waurwa kuno kuliko ohiti monje numweze shiwanda mosu twa osieventa hara
Ogorana na mirongo binenda mbepe wanda Ogorana na mirongo binenda vaini na kokuranda oishi no maka no heva ya no kunde njo fiata haranda njo kaina china chia nje vatire na kunde na kaina china charo chimai karanda oruka kukomba le hiranda omburu kwa hiranda uhema hiranda uja na mbyo binambyo abhi imunu mombatero uri uno valo maranda valo meko nyisa kujambira ande mpanda uja fiata haranda kuranda mburu kwa kaina kiene no rukako
tukanda uja murumunda pidisa amepidisa vonda uja mapida pidisa vonga uruhere utuhawara uruhere na kuturu mena kutulande ushiguridi
Women are also especially disadvantaged in many communal areas. Traditionally, widows lose all land rights and property at the time of their husband's death. Single mothers lead insecure lives because they do not have land rights.
Ala ipuno mngenu bakonjo lombula muto milongo vitatu na ila milongo vitatu na ndani. Chimba kukwa kwetu ngaino baada na ombulo mlongo na hambo umu. Nambano taro shiondere anjo hina maidhe lingo kushabi munumendu wanje ngwi muhona chenjire kayito hanika. Kaimbi panjara wini wepo namba putukara. Wakushana ambo akandu no honzero nje yetu no ndando yetu. Oyipo kuwanga kushamu meshamu tulime hirete kutukoli yavede. Nangali ile shina shire rumwe matuningiro shimaliva okukonja alime hiretu nao orumo biso kumuno uyara kumuno shimaliwa shina bapunga wapi muno murumende orumo embino lutumbo rwanje mebango kuningira oshimaliwa ko horomende inji batire no shimaliwa aho bikonje na shopo live ya okushanoho meso kuningira ko horomende kusho inji po uyara kusha imbi munendo rubede.
This man is altering the brand mark on a young steer. Cattle stolen from especially elderly and weak farmers are converted to cash at auctions. Poverty, unemployment, and ineffective law enforcement are causes of stock theft. Many people believe that camps will protect them against stock theft. Wealthy stock owners like Erastus Shijampa in the Rietfontein block want to own the land they have developed.
Katunga obenji na ndiri moda tobeni o miliundi ya njomini imechwa njomini etatu hene mamutuli muno mwe obi na tobeni bi ondisula no potingo etobeni o the parte o the tobeni on darata njino o etobeni chirongo kashe no lokamba no pe kutaulo beni but what is the problem sisi na kupo chirongo kukambula chiyo chitongo puli retu kwa oromende.
Difficult conditions in the Herero reserves give rise to the hope that the land lost during the colonial wars will be returned.
Gabeto njabi gutano bandu betu le pano. Kamba etu kota betu imbira. Gatu kwa birongo. Yotati. Alikana mekalaira ko muyobi kwa president yetu sema na uyoma. Okaturwa mumuna tatira chiro okiama ngombe omumuna tate mukendi obirongo byotate obikulu bya ngwine obikulu matutura zakambula bandu iki kamikuno hange manji pale kaulika Kaliko mind water. Akwatkerwamo abetiremu.
Memuno kokucha umunembu sokukamu zulishanje usiti mamuno kokucha mahingo yahuliro mwana mbu yahuliro osiana ya makaka varumendu bakakara muno kugulira mu kusoma bakamba baono meva no lombola na kito kutopolo bitoto mwanambu ya bana varumendu bo kukamburwa bingambyo uli no kuhena kukotohinja muno kwa mipero uli ukati osia katirimbo memuno kokucha no hongo mumendu ngo wakanyi kola mu mihindo no okusha chime yango kumuna kukusha chimanje urubendo chibako warumendo wakwambalike hiyo mimi kibire uso kulia njamo mwana wopupowa ne aha njamo kuchaka kumanikire hire muni opowa enene okukambo ubombola ndahu punto gamba ngati nonti ne hambara pona peno ule uno uso kutwa hapo kubuna kukusha o mundu ngine ho wengwe ngani mitiri ngo mundu kucha hamundo rubendo.
The Himba have not entirely lost their ancestral lands. Unlike other Namibians, they can still range over wide areas of remote northern Kauko land. Much of the area is semi-desert, but there are good pastures and perennial springs in the mountains and valleys. Traditionally, people disperse in response to rainfall and return in the dry season to the few permanent water sources. The survival of their way of life depends on this flexibility. Himbas defend the present system of land use. The more sedentary Hereros in Kauko land and government officials favor fencing the area into individual farms. The Himba are apprehensive of incursions onto their land by outsiders.
Ngali rujingi nabyo kumurundu ngibatero mbura kiyaroko kingi tukuroka okujengika kara ekahopera kama hiwa rukunga kukuno malio mawa kukuno mautoto mawa kana mamihiri tu kadino kuya kali kondwe hire tu lidera ini no mbindi kali kondwe mujisi hapo hicho kuja makondero ulili sanga hepangene mujinyeje kuja ngahino chimba katopoli suju nambi mihindi mapeyaru mapeka makondero ondo bichinga hamana echabi tungi panambulu tungi forome hi panambu no forome kujara forumu muku panda be famuku basiru ku paji mujitiri mu kana kwa kwini namuli hongere namuli hongo betanjo nokayuti ngatungulise bina mbya utwa mbiri kuyenga tungulise mbavu kima tukawanja po musase ukuje mundungu ekuta nambano ngukapanjara nge kole nai omarandisiro osandisa kalino sandisa kaparu kali ongombe mehindi ipewo imaliva mimbira ndohunguliva nambiti kurama ombi imaliva yohunguliva mbira ndongombe mehindi katuno sandisa mehindi.
In the 70s, the government spent large sums in providing boreholes, which encouraged people to become more sedentary. Many of these boreholes have since broken down.
Onyota njibahungirana. Onyota tuhupa mombole. Kunichi kweya katuhupu. Tunonyota tunubina bibali onyota itule pako. Tunumbungu itule pako. Umbungu yetu man twapokirina umbungu nonyota bino bibali. Okuja kakuna hupiro kakuna hobu. Kukuna hobu kakuna mi. Chitara habibia. Ibiri ko bimwese no bi. Ibitara hana mano ruka biranda ira kayondo ibaliwa. Ibaliwa ibia. Kaulo kuya. Tikuno mbepona. Mapeka lele. Tikuno mbepona kama weya kanaje. Luma mba mawenga kae no muliro. mamupi kona.
Himpas defend the present system of land use. The more sedentary hereros in Kauko land and officials favor fencing the area into individual farms. Himpas are worried that outsiders will take their land.
Waka haja wacha ombinda hupira mobiso mundu hupira mwakwa. Nabani necha aminge konde kirongo kiko ndo sama bihupe omugwetu ati kakunguye na kako kukemula mukuru. Kakino kokondwa kana pe kondo. Ndi mahupire pi. Apo ngikima ngubire mutumbe kibi huko.